Hello, dear students. Myself, Dr. Apeksha Dhole, Professor, Oral Medicine and Radiology, and I'll be the mentor for today's topic, mandibular normal radiographic landmarks. Students, I have discussed maxillary normal radiographic landmark in my previous video, and you can go through that link. Today, we'll be dealing with the mandibular one. Now, again, a sound knowledge of a radiographic landmark is important for the recognition of disease. Appearance of normal structure is of a wide range, and so we should be aware of all the radiographic landmark, how it is appearing normally, so as to have diagnose the disease. Now, following are the radiographic structures which can be visualized in the intraoral periapital radiograph. Here we are dealing with the IOP radiographic landmark, that is teeth, supporting structures, maxilla, mandible, and material that are used during dental treatment. Last time I dealt with the maxillary one. Now I will be dealing with the mandibular landmark. Now, teeth and supporting structures includes enamel, dentine, cementum, cancellous bone, lamina dura, alveolar crest, pulp, and periodontal ligament space. Amongst these, enamel, dentine, cementum, cancellous bone, and lamina dura, alveolar crest are radio opaque landmark, that is white, and the pulp and periodontal ligament space, they are radiolucent landmark, that is black. Now, this is the tooth which is appeared, the tooth histological appearance, and this is a radiographic appearance. This is a the enamel appears as a cap covering the tooth, and it is radio opaque. Below it, the coronal dentine and the radicular dentine, it is homogeneous. Around 60 to 75% is mineralized, and so it appears as radio opaque. But this is 90%, 90 above than 90, 95% calcified, and this is less than that. And we can have the difference between these two densities. Then pulp is a soft tissue structure, appears radiolucent. Now the dentine, coronal dentine is covered all around by the cementum, but cementum is not appreciated in the radiogram. Though it is present, we cannot appreciate cementum because it is very thin. The thin layer of cementum covers all over, plus the density of cementum is comparatively comparable to the dentine and the alveolar bone, so it cannot be appreciated though it is present. So I have not mentioned cementum over here. Then surrounding the tooth, there is a thin radiolucent line which is periodontal ligament space, which contains periodontal ligament fibers in it. The lamina dura, it is an cortical bone which covers the tooth, that is, it is a bony socket. The alveolar crest, and this is an alveolar bone. This is alveolar bone is cancellous one, and the lamina dura is cortical bone. It is appears as a thick bone. Now these are the structures which will be there in most of your radiograph, that is common read, unless and until that is the region is edentulous. The rest areas will show the tooth and the supporting structures. Now, what are the structures which makes you to differentiate? Yes, these are the mandibular one and these are maxillary landmarks we are dealing right now. Now, there are certain radio opaque landmark in the mandible like genial tubercle, mental ridge, myloid ridge, external oblique ridge, inferior border of mandible, coronoid process, internal oblique ridge. The radiolucent landmark are nutrient canals, lingual foramen, symphysis, mental fossa, mental foramen, mandibular canal, submandibular gland fossa. Again, here you don't have to mug up all these things because the landmarks which I am going to show, which I am going to discuss with you, these are all the anatomical landmarks. Okay, and we are pretty good knowledge about all these landmarks. Only thing, how they appear in the radiograph, that is the clue. What characteristically it will appear on the in the radiograph, and how you are going to memorize them or how you are going to identify them. We'll just go through these landmarks. Now, symphysis. Symphysis is a radiolucent landmark. Can you see this thick radiolucent like? Now this is the line, as we know that the mandible is made up of two halves, and it gets united or it gets fused to form a single unit during the first year of age. That is, at the first year of age, you should not see this radiolucency. But if you see in the older age group, you should think that it might be a cleft or it is a fracture line. Now here the tooth are in the developing stage. They are in the developing stage and it is below 1 year of age. The next is genial tubercle. It is also called as mental spine. Now there are tubercles which are present on the lingual aspect of the mandible. Now those tubercles are actually divided as a superior one and superior, inferior, right and left. And these are the insertion points for genioglossus, the superior one, and geniohyoid, that is the lower one. Now these appears on the lingual aspect, but on radiograph you can see this as a spine-like structure, radio-opaque spine-like structure near to the inferior border of mandible. Now in IOP radiograph you may not appreciate them very well, but can be appreciated well on a mandibular cross-sectional occlusal radiograph. Now that radiograph, if it is edentulous one, you can see in the mandibular anterior region in the midline, you can see the spikes on the lingual side. Radio opacity. Now lingual foramen, as mentioned earlier also, that the foramen is something which is radiolucency and surrounded by the cortical border all around. Now lingual foramen is again a radiolucency, that is radiolucent landmark, and having a corticated border. It is small round shape. Now why it is I'm saying some small round? Because it is the opening for a termination of or a terminal branches of incisive nerve. Now, the landmark is present in the midline near or below the apices of central incisor. You can appreciate very well this is a foramen, and the foramen, as I am saying, it will be somewhat more round shape. Then mental ridge. Mental ridge, as we know, ridge is the bony protuberance. But it will be linear one. It will not be at one particular area. It will be a linear one. As it is bony, it appears radio opaque. Now there are two radio opaque lines which runs bilaterally. Now if we consider from anterior region, it will go superior to the downward in a downward direction up to the premolar region. From anterior to the posterior region, downward in a downward direction obliquely. Now the width is may be variable in density, and the visuality in some areas it will be very prominently seen. In some cases it may not be. Now mental fossa. As we know, the mental fossa is the depression which is present in the mandibular anterior region below, that is in the above the chin region. Okay, this depression which is present appears as a diffuse radiolucency. As we all know, radiolucency appears either as a soft tissue structure or decalcification structure. But there are two radiolucencies which appears as a diffuse radiolucency. Here in the mandibular region there is the mental fossa and one is submandibular gland fossa. Now here we are discussing mental fossa because it is a depression which is appeared in the labial aspect of mandible. Now it extends, as it is you cannot have a very well defined borders when you say fossa. They are ill defined, and the radiolucency that is extending laterally from midline above the mental ridge. Now why you should know this particular mental fossa? Because sometimes you may miss this as an periodontitis, or if the lesion is in the periapical region, you may miss it as a periapical pathology also. So this anterior aspect you should be well aware. Now there are chances of the lesion of these particular teeth with those particular lesion. Then in that case you should go with the clinical examination. Mental foramen appears as again a foramen appears radiolucent. It is an anterior limit of inferior alveolar canal or dental canal. Now the inferior alveolar canal, it enters the mandible through lingula. which is present on the lingual aspect of ramus of mandible. Now, when it enters the lingula, it traverses through the body of mandible and it exits in the in the mental foramen. And here the foramen lies somewhat in the premolar region. Sometimes it is below the apical region of a second premolar, sometimes in between the first and second premolar, or sometimes in between the distal aspect of a second premolar. It might be round, oblong, slit-like, or it completely or partially obliterated. Now, this mental foramen identification is important in view that sometimes you may misdiagnose the mental foramen as a periapical pathology of the tooth which comes in contact with it. Like for example, this is a mental foramen. If it is above or it is very near to the apical region of premolar, you may misdiagnose it as a periapical pathology of those teeth. Then what you are going to do? You are going to trace the lamina dura of that particular tooth. If your lamina dura is intact, that means the tooth is not affected with any periapical pathology, and that is your mental foramen. Why it is mental foramen? Because it is the normal landmark which is present in that particular area. The next one is you have to take a radiograph with a different angulation, that is by slop technique or by Clark's rule. What will occur? If it is periapical pathology, as it is attached to the tooth, it won't move anywhere. But as it is a foramen, it will move or it will shift depending upon where exactly you are giving the angulation. Okay, and that identification is important. Otherwise, unnecessary you will do the considering the tooth being periapically infected, you will do the RCT with that particular tooth, and so it is important. Now we all know the position of the mental foramen is important, considering the age and considering the gender of the patient. Now the when in the adult patient, foramen lies in between. As it goes as more the age passes, the foramen will be near to the alveolar ridge, and so the position also makes the difference, and so anatomically you should know where exactly it should be. The mandibular canal, as I already told, the mandibular canal enters from the ramus. Now here I cannot show the ramus because we are dealing the landmarks with IOPA radiograph. IOPA radiograph mein ramus we cannot see. And so this posterior aspect I can see, this is 7-8 region, and you can see this is a very nice canal. When I say canal, it is a bony structure inside which there is a soft tissue, and so this canal appear as a radio opaque line, and inside it there will be radiolucency. Now it will pass below the apical region of tooth. Now this canal again width is variable. It might be somewhat small, or it will show the variations. Very important is sometimes it will show as if the tooth is entering or it has displaced or it is there in the canal, the tooth root. We have to go with the same concept that the tooth, if it is in the canal, will not have that intact lamina dura. You have to go on tracing the lamina dura. If it is intact, it is not in the canal, because it might be overlapped. Whenever you are tracing whenever you are doing tracing for the mandibular canal, the one concept is this is a 2-dimension imaging and your object is a 3-dimension. You should know that the canal is passing through the mandible body, and there are structures which are present buccally and lingually. Okay, buccal and lingual, and then there is overlapping of these structures. Sometimes the lesions will be above it and may, because of your projection, appears as if it has been inside that the canal, the radiopaque canal, and so the clinical judgment is important. But in some cases you are feeling that it is very difficult to identify, then you should go with the 3-dimension imaging. The nutrient canals, as we know, the tooth is a vital structure. They are supplied with the blood vessels. Blood vessels, I think these are these are only the species which has been where there are the nerve vessels and blood vessels. Now they are present vertically from the apical foramen. Can you see? Sometimes there are from the interdental areas also. Here also you can see the vertical lines. Now they are more prominent in the anterior region where the bony bone is very thin. Again, they are more frequently visible in blacks, male patient, older patient, and two entities like hypertensive patients and advanced periodontitis, where the nutrient canals are prominently seen. So why this landmark? The clinical significance is whenever you able to visualize the nutrient canals prominently in the mandibular anterior region. I'm saying because that is the more prominent thing as compared to the posterior one. You should think for these pathologies. Then myeloid ridge. Myeloid ridge is also called as internal oblique ridge. It is a radio opaque structures. It runs diagonally downward and forward from third molar to the premolar area. Bilaterally in the mandibular anterior region, mandible, on the lingual aspect, there is a radio opaque line which passes from molar and anteriorly to the premolar region. To this, there is attachment of a myeloid muscle, which is a muscle of floor of mandible. Then submandibular gland fossa, it is a diffuse radiolucency which is present on the lingual aspect of a mandible. Now this is a fossa, irregular one, and this is a depression which is called, this is because of a depression where the deep lobe of a submandibular gland rests. Otherwise, there is no mineralization or nothing. It is bounded inferiorly by lower border of mandible and superiorly by the myeloid ridge, and it is radiolucent with the sparse trabecular pattern. External oblique ridge. Now this is an external oblique ridge. The external oblique ridge is an anterior extension of an anterior border of ramus of mandible. If you go and trace above it, you can see the anterior border of ramus of mandible. Now this anterior border, it is a bony ridge, and in the molar posterior IOP, you can visualize this particular landmark. And as it is a ridge, it will appear as a radio opaque, thick radio opacity. But the it it will it will be extending from molar region and goes downwards to the first molar region. This line is having a varying width. Can you see that it is not a distinct line? The diffuse one, and it is of a varying density and varying length, and inferior border. This inferior border of mandible. Now, this inferior border of mandible is a thick band of dense cortical bone. This is a dense band of cortical bone. Now, this can be visualized only when your angulation is steep or when you have not kept any of the 2 mm occlusal clearance. Then only it can be seen. Now, this radiograph, as it is very nicely taken, I think it is being taken for the involvement of a molar. Involvement because it is a dilacerated root, and the involvement of a molar and assessment of a molar in the mandibular canal in relation to the mandibular canal. Now the inferior border of mandible in most of the cases in the benign lesions it will be thinned out, though but it remains intact. Sometimes you may see the onion peel appearance in the inferior border of mandible. So there are so many structures gets involved or remains intact, or there might be destruction, or there might be infiltration with the inferior border of mandible. Now this is a cortical bone. Intactness of this inferior border again plays major role. Coronoid process. Now, coronoid process is the only mandibular landmark which appears in the maxillary posterior IOP radiograph. These are all maxillary teeth, and you can see this is an diffuse shadowy radiopacity which is present in the posterior region. Sometimes it will be visible only this particular area when the mouth is open. You can see the triangular radiopacity. Now, this triangular radiopacity may be misdiagnosed as a root piece. Now, I have taken, if the radiograph is up to this much level, it may be misdiagnosed as a root piece in the posterior region. Then, in that case, you should go with the Clark's radio technique. The radiograph should be taken with a different angulation. If it is a root piece, it will be there, but as it is a shadow of a coronoid process, it will be moved as how you are going to project it. Then there are certain, up to this, we have completed the landmark part from anterior to the posterior region. Now there are the certain restorative material, orthodontic material, certain prosthetic materials that are present in the oral cavity and should be differentiated, because these and should be aware, and the student should be well aware of what the treatment is going on, what was there earlier, and what is the recent trend of the restorative material or prosthetic appliances. So here we go, the silver amalgam restoration and the zinc oxide eugenol. Now this is a dressing where excavation was performed and the dressing was done, and here the cavity preparation was done and the silver amalgam restoration was placed. Here there was a cast chrome, this is a crown, this is missing tooth, and so the pontic has been placed, and this is again a metal crown. Metal will appear always radio opaque. But there are certain structures which appear radiolucent earlier and they were then removed off. Now here the silver points, and very common is gattaparcha. This gattaparcha appears radio opaque. Silver point is more radio opaque as compared to gattaparcha because it is metal elephant. Then the silver amalgam restoration, more commonly and recently also, there is no change in the placement of a silver amalgam restoration, though there are so many other tooth color restorative material, but whenever the strength requires, we are preferring silver amalgam, so we should know. Then porcelain restoration. Now porcelain appears as a radiolucency and metal appears radio opaque. Whenever the patient is having any crown prosthesis with metal, that is porcelain facing metal. Now here this is a metal part which appears radio opaque and the porcelain will appear radiolucent. The silicate restoration. Silicate appears radiolucent, and sometimes you may feel that this tooth is carious. The tooth you feel as a carious, and here you should have the history of any cement restoration. Here there is a cavity preparation you can see, and so you can think that this is not a caries but rather it is a restoration, and this was a composite restoration. Composite restoration appears as a radiolucency. Stainless steel crown. This is a crown which is placed on a single tooth, and it is a stainless steel crown. Here are the orthodontic bands. Now orthodontic bands, they appears radio opaque structures. I have not mentioned I have mentioned the stainless steel, but sometimes you might have gone through the patient with the fractures and the sutures, that is metal sutures were applied to have the stabilization of those fragments. Now anyhow we are using, if we are using metal, it will appear as a radio opacity. Then recently in place of a tooth, implants are placed, and again implants will appear as a radio opacity. Glass ionomer restoration, which is placed in the in the anterior region as they are more aesthetic, appears as otherwise radiolucent. But being radiolucent, some companies are adding some radio opacifier so as to appear on the radiograph, and so glass ionomer restoration, you can include them in a radio opaque restorative material. So we have completed the landmarks, the things which are routinely present in the tooth and the associated structures, because being a dentist we should aware of all these things which are normally present in the oral cavity and should not be considered that they are abnormal one. We should go with the differentiation of a pathology, excluding these normal landmark. Thank you, students. And if you have any query, you can ask to us. Thank you.